Tu taua mai ronga, tu taua mai raro, tu taua mai roto, tu taua mai waho. Kia tau ai te Māori tū, te Māori ora ki te katoa, hone hui e, tae ki e. Thank you and welcome to our Revenue and Finance hearings. We've got a full house today, no apologies, so great to have everybody here. Are there any declarations of interest? There are no announcements by myself. Any announcements by management? Just advising, of course, that we are live streaming and also recording for administrative purposes. And for our speakers who are with us today, just to let you know, you have 10 minutes to present and to respond to questions. There'll be a bell at 5 minutes, just so that you can track where you're at, and then a second set of bells at 10 minutes. So welcome to our submitters that we do have with us today, and I'd like to call up our first submitter, Johan Ellis of Infair Limited. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Johan Ehlers. My submission's on financial contributions, and as you know, financial contributions are intended to fund the cost of infrastructure that council requires to service the demand that is generated by new development, and that's all it is. It's just to fund the cost of growth. The proposed financial contribution provides for exemptions to types of development that generates less demand than a normal household would. For example, the multi-unit developments in the fringe commercial zone is proposed to have a 50% exemption, and I absolutely support that. It makes sense that council would only require developers. Okay, thank you. To pay the cost for new infrastructure that is generated by their developments. That proposed exemption lines up with numbers that typically come out of developers like Somerset, who have a large database of the demand that is generated by their developments. So I absolutely support that exemption. The only point I make in my submission is that is in respect of the developments that are already consented, whether council could look at making this provision retrospective for them, and I think there is a bit of process involved in that if a resource consent has already been granted, then those developers should go through, or will have to go through a variation process. But I think in light of this policy, that would only be process and there wouldn't be any arguments around that. It's just something that needs to be done. The second point of my submission is more around what financial contributions are required for in general. Now, the work that the financial contributions as it sits in the district plan at the moment is based on was done in the late 90s, and that work had the development in two main tranches. The first tranche was for the development in the northwest, so that's the developments like Parklands and Citrus Grove and Kent Terrace, and that was seen to be for the first 20 years, so from 2000 to 2020, and things have played out pretty much according to plan. We're now in the second 20-year period, but the policy still uses the same contributions, even though when one looks at the funding requirement, the LTP shows that the funding requirement for roads now will be 5% of the total amount, where in the past it was 50%. But the contribution still is based on 50% for roads. So there's a mismatch between the contributions and what's it needed for. So my submission seeks or asks that Council conducts a full review of what the contributions are needed for, which basically would mean that one need to look at what the developments are, what infrastructure will be required to service them, and then from that, one can calculate what the required contributions are. But I just don't see that link in the policy as it's been put up. So those are the 2 points in my submission.
Thank you very much, Johan. I will open up for questions from councillors. Deputy Mayor Brosnan.
Thank you, Johan. Annette here, hi. Just a question around your recommendation of the retrospective apportionment over existing resource consents. Would you see that council would cover the cost of those variations? Because obviously inherently there's a processing cost involved in that as well. Interested in your view?
I don't see council covering any cost, because the demand that is created for infrastructure is reflected in that exemption. So with the exemption in place, council will be covering the cost of servicing those developments. Without the exemption, council's actually over-recovering.
Yeah, sorry, just to clarify, in terms of the variation to the resource consent, so the processing cost for the section 127 application, would you see that be covered by council as well?
No, I think the processing cost should still sit with the developers. It's just the cost of doing business.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bowe.
Morning, Johan. Just a question about your second point concerning the financial contribution amounts as needing updating, upgrading, modernising, whatever. This is part of the district plan, as you've acknowledged. I just wondered if, through you, Madam Chair, I could actually ask if this is being considered in the district plan that we're currently putting together, if there is somebody on staff who might be able to provide that information, please.
Through your worship, it was discussed at the workshop, and when we decided to adopt the policy, that a review of the district plan at this stage was not recommended because of the uncertainties with the 3 water review and the RMA reforms. So the financial contributions policy relies on the financial contributions as stated in the district plan for an interim period, a short interim period, while we are actually going to move in the future to development contributions, where there's going to be a clear state of what the money is going to be charged and what it's going to be used for.
Thank you.
Do we have any further questions? Thank you very much, Johan.
Thank you.
I note our next speaker isn't with us yet, so we'll have, I'm sure he's not far away. We'll have a brief moment to chat amongst yourselves.